And welcome back to part 32 of Death End Request 2, where today we are doing everything in our power to get away from Headmistress Midra. Although it's only a plot thing that she's chasing us, in gameplay it doesn't change anything. You can still go through the residential area entirely at your own pace. It's just anytime there's a cutscene, it's going to be implied that we've been running for our life and Headmistress Midra's monstrous new form has been on hot pursuit the entire time. There's a whole host of new enemies here as well, and a lot of them are pretty tough and great for experience grinding, which is a little frustrating that these enemies only pop up now, when you consider the fact that we can't have Liliana with us for the entirety of this chapter, because she's still recovering. Like, it's implied that we're carrying her, literally. But we've got some new enemies. The two new Gigases, the one that actually still has a body is called a Roberto Gigas, and I kind of take offense. Because my name's Roberts, and that's a little too close. But I jest. There are 3 side quests that we are tracking down for this as well. The first one is that there are moth-like enemies that you need to kill, and you need to get 3 of them. The problem with that enemy is that if you leave them alive for too long, they will run away, which is where the issue comes in. But if you can knock an enemy into them, they'll probably die from it. They've got very high defense, but if you can get a lucky crit, it will end them. And wall bouncers are always great for damage dealing. Alternatively, we have an optional boss, which is literally on the path, and a collectible in the form of the bugged whip spider, which is also on the path. The residential area, I noticed as a whole, is a pretty linear game, but the residential area is the most linear area of the game. You will not backtrack or have to U-turn much at all in this area compared to any other area in the game. It's literally just a straight line from one end to the other, which makes sense, because in the plot, like I said, we're running for our life, so having to backtrack on ourselves wouldn't make much sense narratively. But gameplay wise, especially for how late this area is added, it kind of makes it a little disappointing. You spend so much time getting through the game that when you finally get to the residential area, you expect a little bit more than it to be just straight line pretty much from one end to the other. You also pick up Rotti's hair ornament here, which how this got here, beyond me. Which is alright, but like any of the character specific pickups, it just boosts every stat by a small amount, so it's only helpful if you've really got nothing else to add. But you should have better equipment by this stage to want to throw anything else on instead, which is why I leave it off. I skipped that encounter because it was the exact same encounter we just had with no other new enemies, so there was no point keeping it. This is an interesting one. Every time I get here, I always like to show this off. If you can get to the PC, it stops everything around from being active. That includes the Shadow Matter, so the Shadow Matter just stands still. What you don't want to do is break right once you take off the computer. If you do, there's an invisible wall right here, and you can get yourself cornered by the Shadow Matter, and I nearly got caught there. So I even turned the camera back, so I was like, oh! Because I just forgot that there was an invisible wall there, so I just cornered myself for a second without even realising I had to really get out. I keep this encounter in though because it's got new enemies a part of it, even though they die very quickly. And somehow they don't set off any of the bombs, which I was like, what? So I just aim them and I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And I was hopeful that that would kill them. And it does a lot of damage to one of them, not that it matters because it heals it all off immediately. Which you can see, we just kind of stare it down like, you bitch. But this should be going up a little after the first part of the Persona retrospective that I've been working on, which I've been wanting to do for a while. I know I don't talk about Strega when I talk about when I get to Persona 3, but that's just because I don't like them so much. I find them so forgettable. I find them to be a waste. They're a means to an end of the plot, and like that's it. So I just ended up forgetting to bring them up because I just think so little of them. But I'll make a point, because I've yet to actually record the Persona 4 and 5 side of it. I'll make a point to quickly mention it and say, oh, Strega. But I don't care for them. I think they're a waste. I think they're just a villain for the sake of having a villain. And they don't do enough to explain and justify why they are the way they are. Other than just, they don't want the Dark Hour to end so they can keep business. And you can kind of got a point of it anyway, because I did talk about Chidori, but that was just because I was more talking about the game and the future releases struggle to commit to the themes of the original release. Or here's me being brave. I can see this here, and I'm like, I can probably get away being right on the very edge of this. That's fine. No. Yeah, I'm too close. You're gonna see this thing just rip through 100,000 damage. Yeah, 110,000 damage. It just whacked Rotty. I'm curious if you got to level 999, like super boosted your defense, and tried to lower this thing's attack, if it was possible to somehow, some way survive it without the invincibility, but I somehow doubt it. I think they deliberately set its attack far too high that it's impossible to survive unless you use an invincibility. As everyone levels up.
Something's here.
Ooh, Giant's Ring. Giant's Ring is actually pretty handy. It's a bit specific, because it's only attack and health, but if you're going for like a really dedicated physical attack boost, it can be quite helpful. You can see I debate it for a second as well, because it is nice. It's just I couldn't convince myself to go all the way with it in the end.
My turn.
God. I was like, I don't remember keeping this encounter. I was trying to remember what was important. I was like, that's why I kept the encounter, because they just fire off in every direction. And you got a lot of experience for that. We got over 100k for that alone because of the overkill bonus. But there's an ever so slight detour that you could see from the other side that gives you the Magician's Bracelet, which is another item. Like, almost all the items you get here are pretty helpful for specific builds. But because they're specific, they might not always be helpful. But it's because I equipped that, I decided to give the Knight's Bracelet back to someone else. So I give it to Rotty instead. Meaning she's finally moved away from having a level-based bracelet. It's always nice to spice it up. You have a little bit of a small scene that's going to get interrupted by the Shadow Matter. Where he goes, "My." Let's try heading deeper in. And that's the way I want to talk about. I feel for Rotty so damn much in this whole section. If you've been like enjoying the character as much as I have, you can feel how much pain is in her heart right now. You can feel how much torment it is that her own mother. Firstly, she already lost trust and was losing love in her, but to even find out that she's this serial murderer and has become a monster, it's destroying her, and you can tell it's destroying her. Let's look for somewhere safe. Okay. Like, she's very subdued and very quiet. She's not trying to talk. It's just, okay, let's go. Like, the only person she feels she can trust left is Mai and Liliana. And Mai is a default because, let's be honest, she loves her. Like, that's not even in a kooky friend. Like, she genuinely loves Mai in a very romantic way at this point. It's the only person she feels she can trust on that level, whilst Liliana is more of a little sister kind of relationship. And as much as Mai doesn't directly admit it, even putting my shipping aside, there is a lot of points, and I've called them out as and when they've happened, that have shown that Mai does reciprocate that feeling. She does love Rotty back in a same romantic way. She just won't admit it yet. And she never really does, but she kind of caves into it. Like, I won't spoil anything any further, but you'll see what I mean. She kind of caves into it, and they will couple up at some point. But this is the optional boss for this area, and the main thing that's annoying about this thing is that it can set up a counter stance for magic attacks, because it has a reduced magic defense, so of course it does. But this is where I get to counter-introduce something that is a welcomed change from the original. Counter stances counter status conditions in this game. They're not like how they were in the original, where it's just something the enemy can do. And so, Rotty's skill, where it completely resets everything, getting rid of buffs, debuffs, and status conditions will work on it. You can forcibly remove its counter stance if you so wish. Which you're going to see me do early on, because you're going to see the main reason why you want to prioritize magic is not the defense difference, is its evasion. It has got extremely high physical evasion. So the only way you're really doing any effect to it is through magic. So you're going to see me do a turn of attacking its weakness with physical, noticing it barely hits ever, and I'm like, okay, no, I need to deal with it. And I think by the next time Rotty's turn rolls around, I use the clean slate skill and get rid of its counter. And we also learn a new skill for Rotty. She learns Alice Revive herself during this, so we've got two members of the party that can do full revives. which is always welcome. Suddenly the only person we've got to worry about is Liliana in the more intensive battles. If Liliana's the only one left standing, we're in trouble. Was it going to push for it again? But no, its stats too high. So I'm like, no, I need to do something about this. So you see me start debating, and I'm like, Valley Fresh will wipe it. And you're going to see me be ever so slightly doubtful. Like, I use it, but I don't use magic attacks straight afterwards, because I'm ever so slightly hesitant as to whether or not it will work. Like, I'm 99% sure, but I'm like, I don't know. But no, it does. Absolutely commit to it. You're going to see me check next time it's... After this thing gets like a million turns, God, you can see a check. No, it's gone. It doesn't have its counter stance anymore, so I just push for it. And you're going to see why, because when you use magic, it hits more often. And look at the damage Mai's going to be able to rip out because of Rovid Ball. Oh.
Are you prepared to die?
And I keep these animations in just because we haven't seen them in a little while. I usually only show them in boss fights, but we're not going to be facing the boss of this chapter today, which is why this video is a bit shorter, because after that boss fight, it is a lot of cutscenes, and I'm not sure how I'm going to cut it up yet. Like, that's tomorrow me's problem. But tomorrow is also going to be a bit of a significant day anyway, because tomorrow is the 5th anniversary of me doing Let's Plays. Tomorrow, exactly 5 years after, and from tomorrow, was when part 1 of Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition was uploaded. And so I want to make it a bit special and try and do a bit extra with it, which is why I pushed to do the Persona retrospective now. Because I was gonna have it upload tomorrow instead and do both parts as well, but I thought that'd be a bit too much. Because it would be the two videos for the Persona retrospective, a Death End part, and the video I want to do for the 5th anniversary, which is going to be a very reflective video on what I've done, what I've learned, so on. So I thought that would just be too many uploads for one day. I feel like it'd be a bit too overwhelming, so I think splitting it up and having 2 today and 3 tomorrow is good enough. But I have enjoyed working on the Persona retrospective, and by working, it's more of a podcast side of thing, and if you've been with my channel for a while, you know that's kind of how I do those. I like to just be able to sit back and chat, like something that you can listen to, you don't need to watch anything, and just it be that. But I enjoyed working on it, mainly because it was an excuse to go through the whole franchise again, and I went through every single game in the series again, jotting little notes of stuff I'd want to talk about as I went. Yeah, I didn't have as much to talk about with 1 compared to the rest of the series, but it was still something I wanted to make a point of talking about, of why I love the series, but why I also hate a lot of the series. And you should hopefully, assuming it goes alright, see a lot more of that in the next part. Also, there's Rotty learning Alice Revive. Also, the camera gets stuck here for the rest of the fight, but the enemy does die. There we go.
What's wrong, Roddy?
And we get the Retro Metal to confirm our accomplishment.
We don't have a combo attack of love together.
And I don't bother turning it in now, because like, I'll wait till I get the bugged whip spider, because it is going to be another save point between now and the end of the chapter, because it's only one zone. Like, usually these chapters at least take place over 2 nights, but well, hell's broken loose, so what dorm have we got to go back to? So it's just one run.
A treasure box?
And this applies to every chapter left in the game. Chapter 9 and Chapter 10 are one and dones. They don't take any more than 1 day. You just go through them and you crack on. But you need to go activate this as well, because this PC is for a treasure chest that you need to open to get a key. For the only tiny bit of backtracking that is in this zone, we need to go just back down the street and open that other door.
A treasure box?
I also squeeze over here because there's stuff here.
Here I go.
And a lot of free glitch spots, which is welcomed at this stage. You see, I just push for it. I'm like, okay, speedster, go. And then fire them all around the gav. But this chapter is where I think the battle theme gets its more fitting feel. Last chapter, it didn't feel as fitting to have that battle theme.
Treasure box.
Like, it felt like the original battle theme should have still stuck. But I understand that there's not much left in the game, so making it so that if the battle theme only started now, would have made the battle theme much less noticeable and had be a lot less present. But this chapter is where the battle theme, I think, starts to work, because it is a lot more spooky. It is a lot like more menace to it, and just feels a bit more like miserable as a whole, which is fitting to the situation because the worst has happened. Every single one of our dormmates has died. Which is why I kind of alluded to it a little bit, but I said don't worry too much if you decide to kill off the members, you're only missing out on extra scenes, because they're all going to die eventually.
Treasure box.
Also, you get a new weapon for Liliana here. Not that we can equip it to her, but just remember to grab it whilst you're here. You can go straight over, like, I go back and show it off. We got some encounters here, but for the sake of giving this video a bit more length, I go back and show them all. I get stuck here, so I end up showing this one a little bit sooner than I was expecting.
I'll do my best. There.
So I get my attack boost and then rip through them, and it just wipes the floor.
This should.
But yeah, all of them. Abigail, Sarah, it was spelled the other way, Anne, Pick, Holly, Molly,
I think you'll make it, Roddy.
Colette, I had to think of a name, Elizabeth, Mercy, Mary. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else. I think that's all of them. I think that's all of them, but yeah, they're all dead. None of them survived, all of them were killed, which is brutal, and I know it annoyed people when it first came out. Like, it wasn't like super controversial, and like reasons for why they do it and how things end up going into each other will make more sense as it goes on. But I remember people being a bit like, what the fuck, when it first came out and that was first revealed. And this is where you're going to see what I mean by these moth creatures, the ones that you need to kill for the side quest. If you get unlucky, they will heal, you do no damage to them, and eventually they'll just run away. You need to kind of get lucky with a crit more than anything.
I'll do this. Its weakness is.
And you see, they're weak to Star, which is also fabulous with it being her Star Elemental, so her fire attacks are extremely weak. And I just decide to push and just see if I can get lucky at all with a crit, and eventually it just gives up and runs away.
I'll do this. All right.
And it also like poisons Mai for the trouble, so we get a bit of unique dialogue for Mai,
Not feeling great. I need some medicine.
which is lines of dialogue that some people go through the whole game not hearing. But yeah, there is poison dialogue. It's like the only thing that carries on outside of fights, which is like, which I mentioned before. Is I get why it's to balance out the fact that they didn't have that in the original. In the original, the fact that everything would carry over could make you really powerful for no good reason.
I defeated it. My turn.
God, what the hell, did you see that? The numbers, they just went everywhere all over the screen. What was that about?
You're in the way.
Like, I get when it was like we're at the place, but when it cut back, it just like jumping around the screen. And I think, yeah, this puts everyone to level 70. So we nabbed the bugged whip spider, so we have all our side quests done. And now it's time to open this door. Which this one, you're going to see me, with my eyesight, stare at this for a while. Because it's 46645. But you're going to see me just sit on it for a minute, and like a hot minute, and just look at it. Because I was like, my vision's good enough, but my vision is ever so slightly blurred in my left. It's crystal clear in my right, but it's blurred in my left. And I was just hard staring at that for a minute, like, what? And then I have to remember it, because if I open the gate now, the Shadow Matter would have easy pickings. So I have to wait for it to despawn, because it's only ever available for a set amount of time. It doesn't matter how close or far away you are from it. If a set amount of time passes, it will just go. That's the only thing the game cares about when registering if this thing will still chase you or not. See?
What's going on?
And then we can put in that code. But that 5 on the end, I was like, is that a 5 or is that a 6? And I was just looking at it until eventually I was like, I'll just take a guess. I assume it's 5. It was. But that exclamation point by the door is the corner we're putting ourselves in for the end of this chapter. So we are not doing it today, which is why this video is a bit shorter, because because that goes into a very long string of cutscenes and a lot of shit that is worth trying to keep together if it can be helped. So that being said,
It's here.
next time on Death End Request 2, we'll reach the end of the road in our escape from Headmistress Midra. And what will happen next as we go into Endgame beyond that? Who knows? Our side quests don't particularly matter at this point anymore, because there's no optional scenes left to get, but I still do them all for the sake of consistency. But until then, you guys take care now.
is it? Does it fit me?
Let's head out.